Hello and welcome to Data Driven, the podcast where we explore the emerging fields of data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. In this episode, Frank and Andy talk about staying motivated in the new year, answer questions from the audience, and share a little about their secret project. This episode was originally recorded on an impromptu livestream and, in a delightful surprise, Andy was able to join.
Good morning. It's Frank Lavinia here. You can follow me on Twitter at FrankDigsData or find me on LinkedIn, Frank Lavinia. Let's see if I can find my proper, there we go, with my name on it. Just want to say good morning. And, today is Tuesday. And that's a little segment I like to call High Impact Tuesdays. And High Impact Tuesdays. Let me tell you, I lived it this week, right? So I've been trying to do streaming every day except maybe Sunday or Saturday. Although Saturday I have a nice good time when I can do it when the kids are in martial arts class. But the whole idea is that sometimes Monday doesn't go the way you want it to go, and some people would just write off the whole week. And my thesis and my experience has been that that's the wrong way to take it, right? If Monday punches you in the face, Tuesday is the opportunity that you can go and pick yourself back up. So the whole point of it is that, you can still have impact for the week, right? So that's why I call it High Impact Tuesdays. And I am honored to have, just in a minute then. But ultimately, yesterday was it wasn't a bad day, but it was a little bit of a weird day. And some things were going on at Chateau Lavinia, nothing serious, but just some kind of weird things. And I was like, you know what? I've been doing the Grant Cardone kind of commit for the week. So he has this idea where you commit to doing something every week, right? So it's better than having a goal where you say, I'm going to have a New Year's resolution and maybe I'll think about it again in a month. So yesterday was I wouldn't call it a failure, but I definitely didn't stream. And I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity, right? So I have the 10X journal. I love that. So of course, not to be content with doing one journal, I'm also doing this one too. This is by my main man, John Lee Dumas. We basically set in 100 days, you set a goal, and this follows you through in kind of a bit of Scrum type sessions. So I've been doing that, and I kind of looked through that, and I've been very honest with myself about that. With me, as a kind of a surprise, is Andy Leonard. So this could be a proper show, Andy.
I'm looking forward to this, Frank. I did exactly the same thing you did yesterday. It was just had a lot of things going on here personally, on the personal side. Nothing bad, just normal kind of life stuff.
Right.
And so I did exactly what you just shared. I did not stream yesterday. I was thinking about doing it a little bit later. Mm-hmm. And I'm honored that you and I were chatting in the background about some other stuff that we're going to we keep teasing folks.
We keep teasing it.
Promise. We're getting closer.
We'll have it soon. We are closer to it, and I think it's going to be. Innovative. My goal for this, obviously, if you're watching our streams, chances are what pass is. Mm-hmm. I love the cup, by the way.
Thank you. This is a gift from my favorite mother-in-law.
Cool.
Yes.
The I Yoda have a cup. Poster of Yoda over there that says
Yoda's awesome. Who doesn't love Yoda?
Oh, everyone Yoda loves, as you would say.
I like it.
So I think this is going to be innovative. If you're following us, you probably know that Pass is kind of defunct. I think there's an opportunity for the community to rebound. I also would encourage the community to, yes, band together, but I'm a big believer in the notion of being anti-fragile. And I think having smaller pockets of Pass-like things will, I think, in the long term, create a richer ecosystem.
Totally agree.
Yeah. They don't have to compete,
right?
But they don't have to be. I mean, the problem is, so I used to be involved heavily with Ineta, and at the time there was Ineta and Pass, and then when Ineta folded for reasons that some I'm privy to, some I'm not, but it folded just the same. Pass was there to be a backup. Well, in the years since Ineta folded, no one came to the fore to build up another one, and everything, all the hopes and dreams, if you will, of a lot of user groups were pinned on Pass, which is, not exactly, it's a single point of failure and not anti-fragile, as Nassim Taleb would say.
Right. But we still got a lot of, user groups out there that are in the .NET space. A lot of them have gone Azure because, and with good reason, because, the Azure's got not only a lot of buzz and marketing push behind it, but almost everything now touches the cloud. So new development, is integrated with that. And the stuff that even doesn't touch the cloud, Frank, the development that doesn't, what they share about, to stuff, building stuff for the cloud, an awful lot of it applies to doing stuff on premises still.
Right.
So a lot of innovation happening there.
The hybrid story is going to be here to stay. I
agree.
The notion of everything going 100% cloud, I think it was always a pipe dream. I think there's going to be a good story going forward for hybrid, and I think that's going to remain so for the foreseeable future. And it is what it is. I think being hybrid is also an anti-fragile approach, right? Because cloud outages happen. Sometimes your account gets yanked.
No,
I'm not going to go there, but I mean,
I'm sorry.
But for reasons real and not so real, or legit and not legit, right? That's not my judgment. But the fact is that if you put all your eggs in one basket, you have all your eggs in one basket, right or wrong. That's just not a good long-term strategy. Yeah, and I think that now that's just what it is. But so yesterday I was talking to somebody who I had a very interesting day yesterday, right? So I was dealing with some of the drama and stuff at home and some stuff like you said, not a big deal.
Right.
But I happened to be watching in the background Undercover Billionaire, right? And so Grant Cardone, someone we're very fond of. Right? I always have a couple of books nearby. Whoops.
There you go. I haven't read that one yet. That's one of his earlier books. I
think this might be the first one. Yeah.
Okay. Or Sell or Be Sold. One of those.
I think Sell or Be Sold was the first one. Yeah. And you can see his progression as a writer has gotten better. Like the last last major book he did was Be Obsessed or Be Average, and that's much more polished.
Boba.
Boba. Hashtag Boba. Hashtag Boba and then Fett, right? No, he had this thing like show up, just rule number one. He said something to the effect of, always show up. And I was like, and then just out of the blue, somebody asked me for help about his startup in India that he's doing. And he's doing some seriously like aggressive things. Like can't talk about it publicly yet, but like somehow I ended up being a startup advisor, which is kind of cool. I like this guy.
Awesome, Frank.
I like this guy. He's got some chutzpah and he's got some spunk and he's one of these days I'll be telling people, oh, I knew him when he got started. Like I think
in the day.
Yeah, I think he's got that. And of course I have my Max Out hoodie that I won.
Ed Milet.
Yep.
Shout out to Mr. Milet.
Yep. Thank you, sir. I don't think he watches my feed, but maybe I'll tag him in the comments. Who knows? But so I was having a conversation with somebody else who was at a startup later in the day, and she was talking about how, because they basically kind of have on-prem software for cloud hardware management, and I was like, really, what's the market for that? Like, what's the thing? And it turns out it's big. So obviously I work for Microsoft. They pay for the electricity and all that and the mortgage, but I mean, I think that there's an interesting story moving forward in terms of hybrid. I think cloud is here to stay, but so are on-prem data centers, right? I think, And honestly, like, and this is, putting on my Microsoft hat here, which I wish I had it because I got some serious quarantine hair. Is the notion of, Microsoft really has a really good hybrid story, probably better than anyone else. Certainly better than any other company headquartered in Seattle, and possibly Mountain View. I don't know. So one of the other things is that I pulled this out because I was talking about my background in evangelism, and this here, and I think I had this license plate when I first met you.
Yeah, I think so.
When I lived in Virginia, yeah. So I was a tablet PC back in the day, and I point that out, and I have this hanging up because one, I think it looks cool. My dad was always in the lighthouses, so it kind of reminds me of my dad. Cool. But also, it's a reminder that nothing in technology lasts.
Yeah.
It's a very visceral reminder. I also have my Silverlight book on the shelf where I can see it, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it's also a reminder not to be stuck with one kind of platform, because had I kind of drank the iOS Kool-Aid early on, I'm not saying I'd be like, rocking a Lamborghini, but I probably would have a more expensive car. Just saying. But it's just a reminder that nothing is permanent, and to always keep an open mind about new things. That's kind of my point of wisdom for High Impact Tuesday.
Totally concur with that, Frank. To be fair, it was a much more level playing field at the time, and between iOS and tablet, and we could kind of go down this path where we say, we evaluate and compare a Windows Phone at the time to what Apple was doing.
Right.
And, they had an awesome Windows Phone had an awesome interface. I actually owned a Windows Phone for about a week. I'm serious. Yeah. And it just, the rest of the story.
Right.
But it was everyone's experience with it. So anyway, no need to really peel that back. I don't think. Hey, we've got a purple.
One day I'll write a book about that. How about that?
We've got a purple border on my side. That's what I'm showing.
I did that.
What'd you do?
I put that on.
Oh, nice.
That's
I like it. But
it's got the logo on it.
The short version of the story is Frank and I both have been there and done that. And that's probably one of the few advantages to having been in tech as long as we have, is we've seen some of these trends kind of come and go.
Right.
And, some have been successful and some have not. And it's really odd. It's to me, it's kind of odd to think about it, because rarely does something fail or fail to catch on because of the technology. It's usually something else. Corporate culture, for example.
Culture is definitely a big thing. I would say that tablet PC was ahead of its time. I think the price, the hardware weren't there.
Right.
It was still a kind of, you can only afford one PC.
Right.
Type thing. So people would want to get it. I remember having these conversations when I was a tablet MVP, like you're a data MVP at the time. Mm-hmm. And one of I think there were only 15 of us in the world, which was pretty cool. It was people wanted the fastest processor. They wanted the most ridiculous size screen, and they wanted 12-hour battery life. I mean, you can't have it all.
Yeah, there's a balance.
Right. You can't have it light. And that was always kind of the thing. Like when I would do talks on tablet PC, it was always kind of this, can I play X game, this game on it, or what's the specs on it? It's the one I had, it was the Toshiba, I think M205. Yeah. It's a pretty solid machine.
Yeah.
For running Visual Studio, but I wouldn't run like Quake or Doom on it. I'm trying to think of the games that were popular at the time.
Yeah. I worked with a team on a Motion tablet. It was a large rollout for a huge, at the time, retailer that's gone now. But it was very interesting to work with that. I didn't do the coding on the tablet part of that. We had another engineer doing that work, and he did a really good job. I thought it was actually a couple of engineers working on that, and up to that point, I'd heard of pair programming, extreme programming, and stuff. but I'd never really seen it. And I wasn't a big believer in it at that point. I saw those two guys working together and I was like, that sells me. But yeah, there was a bunch of them out there. There were, it was a great idea. And I think the idea has actually been vindicated by the success of iPad, the success of Surface. It was a great idea.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if the technology caught up, and in the meantime, in that bridge period, the iPad 1 was kind of underpowered, but that was the goal, right? So people, and that was kind of my argument was like, do you really want, whoever's climbing the telephone pole to work on electrical wires? Do you really want them up there playing Quake?
Yeah.
You want them to be able to enter data. And, ultimately I bet kind of on the wrong horse because I thought PCs would shrink down to those types of devices, where in the end it was the mobile devices that kind of scaled up.
Right.
Now, I don't, Apple is pushing hard on, their 12-inch iPad or whatever, and with the keyboard as being a laptop replacement. I'm not sure how much more mobile devices can scale up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bet against them this time, but I'm not sure how that's. I mean, at some point, it's kind of like a graph, right? At some point, one becomes more effective than the other, and what'll probably end up being, honestly, I easily see is that you'll have some kind of low-powered device like a Chromebook or like there's some new thing supposedly in the works on the Microsoft side. So I'm not going to say what it is because I'm not sure if we've publicly announced it yet, but where if you have network connectivity, you can VM to not VM, but I mean remote desktop or remote into a more powerful machine. That I don't know. I think that's probably the future. Kind of like the old VT 102s, with better graphics. I could totally see that being a thing.
Yeah, same here. And what we see is kind of an all of the above type thing growing. I mean, with the popularity and growing use of, even microservices, which is, an older technology that seemed to it came out of nowhere and then it was everywhere. And then it kind of, you stopped hearing about it for a while. I've started hearing more and more about that. And that architecture, a lot of it, it's not in the forefront as much as it's behind reliability engineering, site reliability, and database, data reliability, and that sort of stuff. And those are happening in the background. Thomas has a comment there. I can see.
Let me see. Awesome. Hey, Thomas.
Welcome.
On track, and the flywheel is operational for 2021. Awesome. That's good. I think it's I've been talking a lot about goals, and I've been kind of a bit sidetracking a bit from my normal tech heavy conversations, but I think it's important. 2020 did not roll out the way people thought it would, and that's probably the understatement of the week. And ultimately, I've come to this realization that you can't control what goes on out here, but you can control what goes on in here.
100%.
I know that sounds frou-frou, and I know that doesn't sound practical to be coming from an engineer or whatever, but I mean, it's true. The only thing you have control of, and there's another guy I listen to, Dean Graziosi, which, hold on, I got another book. Maybe I'll do a book review of this the other day.
Ooh, okay.
This is a really good book. He basically he did a live stream like a week ago, and he's talking about that he compares two businesses he knows, and one group, they folded, right? They're a restaurant, and another one, they closed for a week, and then they basically went to Home Depot and built out this whole kind of outdoor thing. I think they were in Arizona, so there's definitely weather's a lot nicer there year round to do that. But and he, that was kind of like the aha moment was like, he's right. It's really, COVID affected everybody in the sense, but it did affect people differently. And you hear on the news, you hear a lot of people saying that it's based on your economic conditions. And while there is a heavy, I wouldn't say grain of truth, but there's a big, pile of salt that does kind of, I wouldn't say take it with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to say, while there is gravity to that argument, there's also a lot of folks that could just adapt and overcome. And I know that sounds easy, but it sounds easy, but in practice, it's not. I mean, it all comes down to resilience and being anti-fragile, which I can't recommend that book enough.
Yeah, that's a fantastic book. In fact, the whole, I think he calls it an inserto now.
Inserto, yeah.
Nassim Taleb. And it's anti-fragile. It's a black swan. It's the bed of Procrustes is the one that I'm picking my way through these days.
Nice.
I'm always reading way too many books at one time, Frank. But to me, it's like multiple courses in a meal. You know, I kind of like having a little of this and then a little of that and a little of the other. But absolutely, the being able to pivot, being agile, being anti-fragile, those are all really good things. And I think it's playing a large role in how businesses survive, especially in these times.
Right.
I know the consulting business. I know the training business. It's what I do.
Right.
And the training business goes through cycles like you wouldn't believe. I mean, one of the first things to get cut is a training budget. And so, when at the end of March, as an example, we saw our we got more inquiries about training in the last 2 weeks of March 2020 than we got in the whole year of 2019.
Oh, wow.
That's a number for you right there. There's a stat. And we delivered a lot of training in Q2 in 2020. Yeah. So, I mean, and we've had, it's kind of, it comes and goes. It's done this. And other times when things have slowed down, training has just gone through the floor. And it's been really, really hard to get anybody to sign up for training. And we have those periods where, it's very, a very undulating market. There we go. So I see another comment from Thomas.
One of the books that he ever read was Freshman in College, Eric Fromm, from To Have or To Be. I'll definitely going to check that out. I will add that to my list. Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, thanks.
If you're just joining us live, we're talking about a couple of things. I'll probably put this on the podcast since you're here. But the books and kind of just reflecting on kind of what 2021 could still. I mean, I've seen memes on social media saying that 2021's already shot. Like really, dude, we're like 1 week into it. Like, let's not trash it. And most of the things that happen that we think have a major impact on our lives really don't have a major impact on our lives. A lot of it's perception. A lot of it is fear, which I'm probably going to change direction of topics now.
It's all good.
But Thomas has another comment. Awesome. Do you think of yourself as being a husband, father, or mentor, or do you think of yourself as having kids, having a wife? One is you involved, the other is you. I like that approach because our language really does speak a lot about how we phrase our minds. So if you there's a field of study, it's often abbreviated NLP, which is funny because it's not natural language processing, which is normally what I do, which is processing textual data and trying to get context out of that and content.
Right.
But neuro-linguistic programming. Now, neuro-linguistic programming is an interesting field. I don't agree with all of it, but I think that there's a certain grain of truth in that.
Mm-hmm.
If you search NLP or neuro-linguistic programming, you do get some weird stuff, but there are really interesting grains in it. And just kind of what Thomas said, do you have a wife or, are you a husband, right? Being versus doing, right? And that kind of frames the question, in which if you frame the question, that determines the quality of answer, right? This is another self-help guru. Sorry, I'm overloading on the self-help stuff. But, Tony Robbins is like, the quality of questions you ask yourself is really going to determine the answers. So one famous thing he said is something to the effect of, if you keep talking to yourself in the sense that why does this always happen to me? Well, you're going to get an answer back from your brain or whatever that says, well, because you're a moron, right? Right. But if you ask yourself, how can I learn from this? right?
Right.
What can I learn from this?
Exactly.
Or in my case, when I was in a bad spot about 4 or 5 years ago, how can I make this turn me into a better person? How can I be a better person about this? Exactly. Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. But I mean, there's a lot to that. Now, there's some people, they go whole hog on the self-improvement thing, but maybe I've done that. I don't know. But I mean, the best thing to do is investigate it for yourself and see what you think, what this neural network thinks for you. But I think one of the things that we're working on this secret project, and we hopefully will have more to share on it soon, is that we want to address kind of two things. One, training, right? There's going to be a lot of people that are, even if the vaccine works tomorrow and this disease is gone in a couple of days, which it's not going to happen, people are not going to be comfortable in the same situations. Like, I don't know if I shared this on a previous live stream, but I looked at myself, a picture of myself taking a selfie on a plane. And I was like, ew, that's gross. All those people that close to me. I mean, so I think that I don't know where I was going with this. I'm sorry. I only had one.
No, I get it. It's the kind of the ingrainedness of not being in person with people, social distancing, and also doing an awful lot remote. Right. I think that trend is just going to spill over into whatever's next.
Absolutely. And I think that there's definitely there's a lot of advantages to being remote, right? Like when we did the virtual summit before it was cool, right? We did it in August of 2019. Yeah. And we had speakers from Norway, we had 2 speakers from New Zealand, and 3 or 4 from the US. In the past, to pull something like that off, there would have been flights and there would have been, sometimes visa troubles, right?
Right.
And now we were able to pull that off with, on a shoestring. I mean, we were able to do that, and I think that that's here to stay, because if you want to tap the best brains in the world, I think that in-person conferences will come back, but I think they're going to be smaller, more intimate affairs, where some luminary will, charge maybe $2,000 for a ticket, but you're like in a much smaller room with them, and maybe more interactive. Because I think that's really, in my mind, that's really the only. There's 2 big advantages to an in-person conference, like that type of interaction with the speakers and interaction amongst the attendees. Yeah,
and I would say the second one is actually a better benefit for your career long term. Is you meet people who are engaged now, but if they, and I'll take this back to the user group, Frank, to an actual local event, because back in November of 2005, you and I and Nick Harris met at one user group meeting, and everything. I say everything. An awful lot that happened in my personal career since then has been based on that meeting. We all became friends, and we were all, I describe us as punks. We were all contractors or people not making very much money, not very influential at all, just kind of there to learn. And it's just been incredible.
I referred to myself at the time as a scrub.
Scrub. That's a good term. I've got to call me a punk.
But no, I mean, I had a blog, I had, but I didn't have a thing. But I mean, I would say, like, one of the most influential things was I was attending Tech Ed 2005. Yeah. That was a great event. I was able to reconnect with some folks because I had relocated to Virginia, hung out with a bunch of folks that I knew from New Jersey, and we met a bunch of folks. And at some point, I was at a dinner with a bunch of like RDs. I remember I was at a Brazilian steakhouse in Orlando, and my manager at the time, who was he was just blown away. Like, holy crap, we're like at a table with all these like huge names, and like it was just not a big deal. I mean, the networking aspect, which I've seen a lot of conferences try to get around that and trying to enrich the virtual experience with that.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone has done the best job of that when he had the 10x boot camp.
Yeah, the 3-day event. You and I both attended that.
Yep.
It was incredible. And you're right. That was the most social,
right.
Virtual event I've seen to date.
Right. And it still leaves a lot lacking, but still it was, it's as close to the best example I've seen yet. In fact, it is probably the best thing I've ever attended.
It's the best one I've seen so far. And I think we're going to look back in 2 or 3 years on these events like that in 2020 and kind of laugh. It's like, the best we could do at that time. But it's important to remember it was the best we could do at that time.
Well, I mean, there was somebody who did an unboxing of the original iPod, right? And we remember it much better in our heads than it actually was. I mean, it was but it did the job because at the time it was revolutionary.
Yeah, it was the first unboxing I remember.
Yeah. So no, I think that, and again, that's why I have this tablet license plate, hanging up, because it reminds me that nothing is constant in technology, and
that's a good reminder.
But plus, it looks cool, and when I do my OCR demo, like it's usually it's within the camera range, it shows up.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it serves multiple purposes. But the key, though, I think, is moving forward. Moving forward, I think that community is not going to be just in-person user groups. I think it's going to be LinkedIn groups, people who follow this stream, people who follow your blog, people who are in your newsletter. I think community is going to take on a different meaning. Yeah, and I think that our secret project is going to be geared towards. I want to make it so it's easier for people to skill up. 2, build a community in ways that are more, maybe even financing the community through the secret project, right? Like through an affiliate program, right?
Yeah.
If we can pull that off, because we did that with Data Soup, the virtual summit. Worked. And I mean, one speaker, I mean, she walked away with a pretty decent chunk of change.
Yeah.
I mean, we made some money on it, but we basically, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because that's
sure, but that's part of what we're what we're doing. I think that was the very first thing we had done that involved money and empowering the community, and in some aspect enriching some community members. And we want to see that because that's an added incentive.
Absolutely. Well, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. I mean, you make yourself. I mean, we created an online conference, and this is when it was cool to charge for them, right? I know that there's still some debates, but I mean, it was like, the nominal price was $25, right? Yep. We had discounts for our listeners and people who watch the stream, so it was basically $9, right? So, I see some comments on as soon as I close this loop, and you know how I get when I get distracted. We enriched the community by creating a conference that was cheap to attend, right? And if people were students, I worked out a deal where it was either free or like 99 cents, right? It was really, so it wasn't a money play. The point I was making was we were able to not just hold the event, enrich people by sharing knowledge, but also encourage folks to share the link so they can make a cut or a commission based on how many tickets they sold, which helped us and it helped them too. Which I think that's the best, most sustainable model. It's one of the big sales gurus of the 20th century is Zig Ziglar, and his famous thing is that you can have whatever you want if you help enough people get what they want, which I kind of taken to heart because it's all about servant leadership in my mind. I think
so. We do have those couple of comments. Go ahead and address those, Frank, if you will.
What's the Alberta. Best? I love Alberto. He's he has a great podcast with Rupesh. These guys are great. Totally listen to that. What's the best prediction for AI this year? I would say I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I would say in terms of what the incredible advances we've seen in the last 3-4 years, I think we're going to start seeing a slowdown of those. I think what we're going to see here and for this year is the wider adoption of existing AI models, right? As the cost of those models go down. The problem is that the cost of the training of kind of the next level models are going up, right? Yeah. So I think that we're kind of at that inflection point. I'm not saying it's going to be an AI winter. I'm not saying that, but I am going to say that the heat wave is definitely over, and we might have a few days where you want to get a sweater on. But I don't think it's a winter. I think it's going to be a pause, because I think quantum computing is just around the corner, and I think that's going to solve a lot of our high performance compute issues. Now, that having been said, I still think it's years away before quantum computing is more of a widespread enterprise initiative. But I also can see quantum emulation on standard hardware being more of a thing and being more widely accepted. I think there are some interesting breakthroughs in compute power and compute clusters that are just on the cusp of hitting the market. So I would say that this year isn't going to be about breakthroughs in research. Could be wrong. Hope I'm wrong. But it's going to be more about breakthroughs in deployment, right? Because I work with a lot of customers that who they're just still on their beginning of their data journey, right? So they get their data house in order, and then they figure out, well, what can we do with this? So I still think there's plenty of runway left for those who are implementers. I think the research field is going to be a little bit, might be a little turbulent. But I also hope that the researchers start thinking about ethics in AI. And I think this is a good time when the breakneck pace of progress as it slows down, to kind of step back and think about explainable AI, ethical concerns in AI. I think there's a huge, I don't think it's going to be a long pause. I don't think it's going to be a winter. I think it might be just a bit of a few cool days. But I do think that's happening.
Well, I think one of the things you brought up, Frank, that was a surprise to many. It certainly shocked me, was how much came out of emulating quantum computing on standard hardware. And it really was I think that may be the model going forward, right? If we're going to have forgive the pun, a quantum shift in hardware tech, is, and we know it's coming. In theory, we can emulate it. Then that may be the right way to go.
Right. And I would say that the emulating quantum is not going to be as fast as quantum. But I mean, I like to give this example of, if you have a hole in your roof, right, and you go to a contractor and you start looking around contractors and you say, hey, I need this hole fixed. What they're going to say is, one guy or gal will say, I can get this fixed in 20 seconds. Oh, great. When can you start? In about 20 years, 10 to 20 years, right? Or do you go to the next one and say, like, I can do this in 6 months. When can you start? About tomorrow, right?
Right.
It's that payoff. And that was my aha moment from the last MLADS I attended in person. MLADS is an internal Microsoft conference that focuses on kind of futures of data and AI, most of which is probably NDA. But I will say, and I actually did record a data point like outside the building, and I was very intentional about doing that outside the building, even though it was raining because it was Seattle.
I remember that, yeah.
But I was like breathlessly excited because there's definitely, I think, a big wave coming on that. So just want to close the loop in some of these comments, only because, like, if you're taking time out of your day to watch, that's awesome. If you're taking time out of your day to also respond, I want to be respectful and respond to that. So selling ads is the model. I think selling ads is going to be with us for a long time, but what I really see the future is cooperative marketing, right? That affiliate marketing. Like, if I sell something for $10, I think for Data Soup, our split was 50-50, right? So you sell it for $10, you get 5, I get 5, we get 5. And that sort of thing.
The LinkedIn user, I don't know if you're that's Mena again.
Okay, cool, and awesome.
I want to connect, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
I think it's Mena. I think because he sent me a YouTube video where it was pronounced. So it turns out. So speaking of networking connections, this is amazing. One, he had a chance to take a selfie with Mark Russinovich at Ignite 2019. So Mark Russinovich is kind of a big deal at Microsoft. I'll just put it like that. Go use your search engine of choice to see why he's important. But Mena he's a cool guy. So he actually attended a training seminar I delivered on behalf of Wintellect like a couple of years ago. So we stayed connected on LinkedIn, and I think he moved from the DC area, but he's the guy, because at the time, right here, I have a Macintosh, but because I was trying to use Apple Motion to do a lot of the fancy graphics and stuff like that. So I was somehow during break, we were talking, he goes, oh, you should build a Hackintosh. And I was like, well, I don't know about a Hackintosh, because Hackintosh is a PC that basically runs Mac OS, right?
Interesting.
So you don't have it on paper. It's cheaper, but there's a lot of work that has to go in to make sure that the components work and the drivers are there, right? Because the Apple desktop and laptop hardware ecosystem does not have a driver system like we would expect in Windows or even Linux. Don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but he is the one that tipped me off to running a Mac OS in a VM.
Interesting.
And it runs perfect. Like, so he was pretty cool. So we were connecting and we were chatting on LinkedIn. He goes, I don't know if you remember, but I was, in your class. I'm like, oh, you're the Hackintosh guy. So I'll just call him Hackintosh guy.
Well, I also have a Mark Rusinovich story, and it was at IT Dev Connections. The IT connections and dev connections, and there was I think it was SQL connections too. I was speaking there, it was a few years ago. I want to say 2014, 2015, and it was right after his book had come out. He wrote a novel called 0 Day, and reportedly it was being considered for a movie. I think
it's still in pre-production, but
I'd love to see that, because I'd heard Ridley Scott's name associated with that. Nice. So I'm in the, I'm in and out of the speaker room, and it wasn't uncommon for people to just leave their laptop sitting on the table there. And I went in, and
I hope he locked his laptop.
I didn't see, but he probably did. And I sat up next to, I found an open spot, and I set my laptop up, and I was getting ready for some session, getting ready to present there. And somebody walks up beside me, and they're standing there, tall, really tall guy. And he's sitting doing some work. He's kind of leaning over. He's not really sitting down. Finally, he sits down, and I look over, and it was Mark Rusinovich. Whoa. And I'm like, you're Mark Rusinovich. Total fanboy reaction there. And he's like, well, yeah.
No, well, I like your phrase when people come up to you like, you're Andy Leonard, and you're like, I've been living with myself my whole life. It's not a big deal.
I'm not impressed.
That's because you're so humble. I was at Mix. It was either Mix 09 or Mix 07. I actually bumped into Scott Guthrie.
Oh, cool.
And I said hello to him and stuff like that. I was like,
nice.
Yeah. So it's cool. That in-person thing is something you only get. But even people that you meet in the hallways and you interact with who are also scrubs like you or at least like me.
Yeah.
I meant that to be self-deprecating, not like pointing at you, Andy. But I mean, like,
I feel the same. I'm a scrub still. I'm just older.
But when I met some folks that were not big deals at the time who now are. And my biggest fanboy moment, honestly, was when I met oh my God, I can't think of his name. It's so embarrassing. But I was like, oh, I'm so glad to meet you. And I was like, it was at I think Build 2016. And cool. he was just kind of like, he was flattered, but he goes, he turns to me and he says, like, I'm afraid that you're going to ask me for a kidney or something like that. So that was great. So we have another question from Alberto. What are the benefits of $100 for training AI? Not quite sure what you mean for that, or are you trying to ask what the compute cost for training an AI is?
Yeah.
I think training AI, is a tricky term. Because I was actually talking with Rupesh yesterday, Alberto, and he's using a service called Lobe, which is extremely cheap to train a custom vision model.
Interesting.
But custom vision, and maybe we should do a deep dive on this someday, but custom vision is essentially taking an AI model that's mostly trained and adding another layer on top of it. So the cost of training that is very low because it's already been mostly trained. But in terms of kind of like new models that do crazy new level things, I think they're still going to happen, but not at the pace at which they happen. I think it's going to mirror kind of the game industry, the video game industry. And you're probably thinking like, why? Well, the reason why I'm saying that is because the game industry used to have a big title coming out like every week. And then it was like every couple of weeks. Then it was once a quarter or two a quarter. And now we have one, a big game release, maybe twice a year? I mean, it's more, I think that it just gets to the point where the cost of producing a video game, like a AAA title like Cyberpunk or Grand Theft Auto, is so massive.
Yeah.
That very few companies can afford to do that. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's going to be like that in terms of, and I mean big changes like, and GPT-3 level type innovations. I know Microsoft Research just posted something online about a new type of, I think it was called Alberto, actually, Alberto, which was a play on BERT, which is a advanced, it's a transformer model for doing NLP.
Cool.
Awesome. Was that also Maina?
It was.
Said, yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Yep. The Hackintosh guy. He's cool because I was able to avoid buying an actual Macintosh for like a year because of that hack. But the GPU, the virtual GPU driver, it did not, Apple Motion didn't like that. And ultimately I found somebody selling like a 10-year-old Mac for a pretty decent price, and it ran the software I needed. And some of the fancy graphics you see generated were built on that.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
Frank is, by the way, the generator of all the fancy graphics.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a graphic designer, and this is before the internet. And it was my parents were like, "You're not going to make any money doing that." Now that's probably different, but
probably true. But and they had your best interests at heart.
Oh, yeah.
But it shows in your work. You got to have the eye. You got to have a talent for that. I do not. So when I build something like a web page or something, I think I've told this story. I had a site, got popular enough that it was time to get someone who knew what they were doing with site design engaged. And I said, "So what do you think of what I built?" And they said, "It looks like an engineer built it." Now, being an engineer, my first reaction was, "Oh, that's cool." Turns out that's not a compliment.
It was a left-handed compliment.
Yeah. So I get it now. But I mean, it's not my bag. But Frank has a phenomenal eye, and you're an artist, Frank. So that's why it's so cool to see the stuff that you do. And you're trying to help me get better at this. We've been going back and forth a little bit on stuff, which is great. So I absolutely love it.
So if you're worried out there in listener land, for the secret project, I'll be doing probably most of the motion graphics.
Yes, Frank will be. Because there's a heavy visual component. So
right. I think what we're working on is innovative. I think it's something that has not yet been done. I think it's been done in other fields, but not in our specific niche. And I think
we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's an experiment.
That's right. It's an experiment. If it works, it works. And we'll definitely, hopefully, we'll have more to say about that soon.
Yeah.
Because I want to max out 2021.
I'm not wearing a shirt. I'm wearing my Bimble this side. I'm wearing my Bimble Hero shirt. So
you're a hero.
I don't know.
I just realized there's gonna be a lot of folks listening to this on the actual podcast. Will have no idea what we're talking about. But
yeah, we're pointing to our shirts. Yeah. We're wearing my shirt. I've got my Bimble Hero shirt on. Frank's got his Max Out hoodie. Isn't that a hoodie, Frank?
Yeah.
His Max Out hoodie on from Ed Milet's show. Bimble Hero refers to Verigence.com, the business intelligence markup language. That's Bimble. And they have a program there where they let some of us become Bimble heroes. We get early access and we do beta testing and all sorts of fun stuff.
Cool. And you also have Bimble Academy, right? Is that your thing?
I did for a while. I started that, and then I sent the material over to one of our guests on the Data Driven podcast, one of our early guests, Razor Rad. Mm-hmm. And he has the Radicad, that's his website and consulting company, radicad.com. He's got an academy, an online academy. Cool. And I sent my material over to Reza along with my, I also started SSIS Academy, and I sent that over as well. And cool. So it's been kind of cool. I was one of those things, another experiment. And I looked at this and went, well, there's some value here. It's not valueless, but is it worth me keeping up with the other stuff, the administrative stuff, not the content, but the administrative stuff. And that's what was really kind of weighing on me. So, and not having Frank's graphic skills and his advertising mind and all of that, that hurt as well. Reza's doing a much better job of that and getting that word out. And you can go there and learn not just SSIS and BEML, but an awful lot of other stuff. Some of this AI and machine learning that's out there. His bride, Dr. Layla Utada, she has courses out there at Radicad as well.
Oh yeah, so, Layla is very influential in the AI space.
Yep.
She's one of the global AI leaders or something like that. I forget.
Yeah. But really smart. Both of them, scary smart.
Oh yeah. So GPT-4 is coming out. Interesting. What I want to know is the metrics around GPT-4, because GPT-3, depending on who you ask, costs $13 to $12 million to train. Wow. And it had billions of input parameters. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount, which was an order of magnitude higher than the previous GPT-2. And this is the one that it could generate text. You give it kind of a seed of what you want to talk about, like packing for Mars, and it'll come up with a whole list. I mean, it doesn't read like a human wrote it per se,
right?
But it does read. It doesn't read like a machine does either. It reads kind of like somebody who was intoxicated was writing it. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it, because it has moments of like lucidity, and then it kind of goes off in a weird tangent.
Yeah.
But considering it's completely artificially generated, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Drunk AI is better than, drunk AI. The state of the art of AI is, writing like a drunk person.
That is an interesting concept, Frank, and I can see that turning up. Yeah, turning up in one of those, in a graphic novel somewhere. Right, that was Maina saying he has to jump on a call, and Rupesh jumped in as well.
Awesome.
To say hi. So thanks both of you for being here. Gosh, I feel so honored.
I tell you, man, Rupesh, we're going to be talking about, I'll be interviewed by like a documentary crew. Like, well, how did you first meet Rupesh? He's got some great ideas. I mean, he's super smart, and he's got a team in place, and he's executing. Right. That's nice. I don't know how much Rupesh wants to share today, but I mean, he's definitely executing. You will know his name at some point in the future. Everybody will probably know his name at some point in the future. But I'm glad we had this talk of High Impact Tuesday. Here, let me play some of the graphics just real quick.
Yeah, do some graphics.
There's actually a funny story behind the notion of high impact this, high impact that, and impact quantum. It was actually inspired by something that I took a what's the word from Dune? Transmute the poison.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe one day we'll reveal it, but I'm going to not do that today.
But our friend Grant, he actually tweeted yesterday, I think it was, something about how he owes so much to his haters and detractors.
Yes. And there's another good author, Marie Forleo.
Mm-hmm.
And she refers to turning bad things into a certain type of fuel.
Mm-hmm.
She's from Jersey, so it starts with an F. But she's basically turns that kind of the haters that she's had and kind of uses that to propel her forward.
That is
her
so
book
funny.
Is really good too. Everything is figure-outable.
Right. And Frank, Frank was playing on words there. When when he and I chat privately, sometimes he will sometimes become animated. And I will refer to that as him going Jersey on.
Going Jersey. Yeah.
Going all Jersey. Yeah. So anyway,
But
it's fun. It's all in love. It's all men in love. Yes.
So one of the things that we're going to do, I think, and let us know in the comments if you think this is a good idea or a bad idea, is interview each other.
Yeah, Frank came up with that a couple days ago when we were chatting on Skype.
And then interview our virtual assistant that we have. That we've
Bailey, yes.
And it'll be the name Bailey, which is short for British AI lady. I actually sent Andy a couple of prototype animations for her.
I love those, by the way. I don't know if I responded, but
I think you did. Yeah.
Great idea.
Oh, we have a question.
Mohammed.
Good morning or good afternoon or good evening. This is global, so it could be anywhere. Can you explain the data mesh concept versus data lakehouse? Or is it just hype words?
I can't tell you the difference between the two.
So data mesh is a term I've not heard yet. So I'm definitely going to hit the search engine as soon as we end this. Data lakehouse I've heard of.
Yeah.
I would say there's only one company right now that's preaching the data lakehouse gospel. That's probably because it's all done entirely within their stack.
Could be.
I don't know.
You know, the mesh thing, I remember Fabric. I think apps, the app service Fabric. That was the first mesh I heard of. This may be a different thing than that. It probably is, and I'm just not up on my terms, and that happens all the time. I'm not the early adopter unless I'm writing the stuff.
Unless you're writing it, yeah. I mean, I would say with data lakehouse, I like the idea, right? Even though I was snarky about that only one company is really propping up that idea, it's still a good idea, right? And I'll say it's Databricks, right? Databricks is taking what they've built with Delta Lake, which Delta Lake is the idea of adding ACID transactions on top of a data lake. And the whole idea, and there's more research I need to do on this, right? And if anyone from Databricks wants to get on a live stream and explain it or come on the podcast,
that'd be great.
Both, let me know. You know where to find me. I like the idea. I think it's interesting. I think it's one of those kind of, it's kind of like, I'll use a car analogy, right? A Tesla, right? I would love to get a Tesla. It's an interesting idea. Is it practical? I don't know.
Right? Martin Fowler. Sorry, go ahead. I just saw the other one. He's talking about Martin Fowler's an article from him. Okay, I'll read that, and I'm sure Frank will too. Yeah, we'll check it out. Thank you, Mohammed,
thank you
for sharing that.
I will check that out. If just reading between the tea leaves between monolith versus mesh, my guess is it could be, again, this is just a guess, that they're referring to, instead of having one big data server or data kind of service, you're kind of have multiple smaller ones. You let 1,000 flowers bloom, if you will, which could be an interesting technology if you have kind of your data catalog in place. I know Microsoft has a new offering called Purview, which is essentially Azure Data Catalog, because ultimately the advantage of centralization is you know where everything is. Disadvantage of centralization is everything's in one place, and that has some interesting implications with high availability, disaster recovery. If you have a more distributed system, that does make you more resilient, dare I say anti-fragile. But then you have the problem of locating where stuff should be, right? I think those are not mutually exclusive, but they are two competing philosophies.
And what you'll ultimately find is, in any given solution, one's going to outperform the other. That's physics.
Right. Well, or reality. I'll get even more.
Well, sure.
That's just like, there is no one size fits all, and it all, the favorite phrase that a consultant will say is, "It depends." Like I was a couple months ago, I was in an architecture design session with a customer who did something very clever with their SQL Server, And I was like, oh, wow, that's clever. I'm like, won't scale, but it's clever. and but they took it in stride. And I was like, it's like, but their business is so unique that, I mean, they're not going to suddenly, and I warned them, I was like, this will be fine. You'll start seeing problems if you 10x the amount of data throughput that you have, and it'll totally break in 100x. Just telling you right now. I don't want you to say Frank put his seal of approval on this for all time, and then like 5-10 years later, somebody's like, oh, that guy was a moron for saying that. Right. I put my stamp with a little asterisk on it. Like, as long as you keep this type of growth trajectory, you'll be fine. Yeah. But this is totally not scalable. And I said that like 3 times, and they're like, we get it. But yeah, definitely. It seems like I have some reading to do. I actually going to spend some time studying Purview today.
Cool.
And tomorrow I will do a live stream. I'm not exactly sure when, because I have an official day job work engagement. But I will do a review possibly of this book.
Oh, cool. The Underdog Advantage. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to check that out now, Frank.
Yeah, it's an awesome book. It's interesting, like his story and stuff like that. And he's done some interesting other stuff too. Cool. So with that, this will also probably end up being in the podcast feed sometime today, maybe.
Sweet.
We have another comment. Metadata discovery and metadata engine is the raising solution for distributed data. Like, yeah, I definitely need to check that out. But you're right. I mean, ultimately, metadata is going to be probably more, I don't want to say more important than data, but it's definitely going to be an important component to anybody's data strategy, right? Because you want to know what you know and how that what you know is structured, where that is, and what the requirements are around it. But I agree. We should get you, Mohammed, on the show. Consider this an official welcome or an invite to being on the show, because it sounds like you got some interesting insights into things. I'm a cautiously optimistic and a cautious skeptical believer in what Lakehouse can do. I have questions about it, and there's a lot of videos that have been coming out on the Databricks YouTube channel, which you totally should subscribe to because they have some good stuff. Or just go to franksworld.com because I highlight a lot of their stuff. I think in terms of predictions for the year, I think there's going to be probably we're going to see more innovation in data engineering architectures than we are going to see in AI. I may eat those words, but I think we had a guest a few weeks ago where, the joke was, he goes, first you get the data. Right? And you see this a lot in AI papers and AI research, right? Well, first we got this data. I'm like, that sentence probably covered 80 person months potentially. That's not a trivial thing. First you get the data.
And he admitted that. I mean, he said
that was kind of like the joke, and that was kind of like the theme. So go back and listen to that because he had a pretty good perspective on that. But I mean, that's a thing. There's a cool animation I posted. I don't know where I posted it, if it was LinkedIn, but it was basically kind of like this CGI fly through a piping system, and it was basically data engineers run the world. That was kind of like the theme of the video. But I'll dig that up and maybe repost it, or maybe save it for our secret project because it would be a cool thing.
Yep. Hey, I got to tell you, Frank, I know you wanted to wrap up because you got some more stuff to do, and I'm cool with that. You know what? When you first put the border up, I was like, what are you doing? I like it because it gives our disjointed screen here some continuity. Yes. I like it. Such a graphic artist.
There you go. I like to think I came up with the idea, but Restream, who's the provider that we're doing this through, had kind of one. I think it was this one.
Okay. Oh, that's
Restream branding. This is data driven.
Right. I like this, Frank. This is cool.
I'll teach you how to make this. It's actually pretty easy.
You could spend all your time teaching me graphics, Frank. You know that, right? I mean, I could consume that universe. I would expand to fill all of it because I am like, when I walk into the room, graphics. I'm like a graphics black hole. I draw graphics ability from others.
We use Canva. We've been using Canva more and more.
We have, and it's really cool.
I like Canva. They're not a
I can
sponsor,
use it.
but if you're listening, Canva, let's call me. But Canva's really awesome. I was resistant to it because I'm like, I could do that in Photoshop. Yes, I can do that in Photoshop, but firing up Photoshop, just launching the application is at least 10 seconds or 8 seconds on my fastest computer. It's 7.5 seconds. And yes, I did count. But then there's a lot of moving parts for that. And sometimes you just want to post a graphic.
Right.
Part of our success at Data Driven and a lot of our other projects is our speed of execution.
Yep.
Because we do have other commitments, and no one's going to care. Did I labor over this Photoshop graphic for 7 hours, or did I put something that was really good looking in Canva together in a couple minutes? I'm not in the artistic business. I'm in the business of getting knowledge out there, right? And that's really
It's one of our favorite questions, Frank. What is the problem we're trying to solve? And what
Absolutely.
we want is to draw that eyeball. Hey, okay, now you'll consider clicking it.
Right. And in fairness, that should be the question everybody asks themselves. What am I trying to accomplish?
What am I trying to solve? Yeah.
My boss,
my old boss and mentor, Ben McEwen, that was what he taught me.
Cool.
What is the problem you're trying to solve?
No, that's good. It's always good to stay focused and
we should
grounded.
get Ben on the show. That
would be cool.
That would be cool.
Awesome. So with that, I'm going to end the show. As always, I'm going to stream. If you notice, I've been streaming a lot more. I'm trying to do it every weekday for sure. Maybe once or twice on a weekend. One day last week, I actually streamed twice in one weekday. So,
what?
Yep. It's okay. The LinkedIn terms of services, I can do it up to 4 times.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's maybe they've lightened it because I've been on LinkedIn Live a little over a year now, so they were kind of like there was a whole list of things you had to agree to.
I remember that. Well, I got on a few months ago, and they were still in the try to hold it to 1.
Right. I think part of it is they don't want it to be like a TikTok. No knock on TikTok, right? I mean, like Instagram, where it's like somebody stands in front of the thing and does this, and I don't know. I think they want to keep it more professional and kind of focused on a topic. Yeah. Which focus on the topic is not something we do really exceedingly well, but I think you know what I mean.
We focus on a collection of topics.
Oh, I like that. We iterate through a collection of topics.
Oh, even better.
Awesome. All right. So with that, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Mena. Thank you, Rupesh. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Thomas, for commenting. We really appreciate it. I want to say you have a great day, great evening. I'll catch you tomorrow when I do my book review on The Underdog Advantage. So with that, I will sign off. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Data Driven. We know you're busy and we appreciate you listening to our podcast. But we have a favor to ask. Please rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Amazon Music, Stitcher, or wherever you subscribe to us. You have subscribed to us? Haven't you? Having high ratings and reviews helps us improve the quality of our show and rank us more favorably with the search algorithms. That means more people listen to us, spreading the joy. And, can't the world use a little more joy these days? Now, go do your part to make the world just a little better and be sure to rate and review the show.